That's the sound of the sirens going off. That means the missiles are inbound, and we look off in the direction of Iran right now. That is cascading in this direction. A lot of lights separating off of it, and those are the bomb lights.
The sirens haven't even finished their first scream when the sky above Tel Aviv starts to change. Streaks of light cutting through the dark as missiles race toward the city, and for a split second, everything feels suspended, like the moment before impact when people stop breathing and just listen. Because this isn't a warning anymore, it's happening right now, and it comes just hours after the 48-hour ultimatum from Donald Trump, a deadline that was supposed to force a decision, but instead may have just triggered something far bigger, something already in motion and impossible to stop.
That Iran endangers the entire world, the last 48 hours have given. They have now the capacity to reach deep into Europe. They already have fired on European countries.
Hours before the sirens ever started echoing over Tel Aviv, the tension had already been building beneath the surface, quiet but unmistakable, as accusations mounted that Iran had launched missile and drone strikes across the region. Not as isolated incidents, but as part of a broader escalation that was beginning to stretch beyond borders. And in response, the United States did not hesitate, issuing a direct ultimatum centered on the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical oil arteries in the world, demanding it be reopened or face consequences that would move beyond warnings into action. And from that moment, the situation stopped being a distant geopolitical tension and became something immediate, something unstable. As military movements accelerated, alliances were quietly tested, and every nation with energy flowing through that narrow corridor, Europe, Asia, global markets, found themselves pulled into the gravity of what was unfolding, not as observers, but as stakeholders in a crisis that was no longer waiting to happen, but already in motion.
Those are the air raid sirens. The Israeli population now is pretty disciplined about getting into the shelters for this period of time and waiting it out.
The first sound isn't the explosion, it's the siren, sharp and rising, cutting through the air like a warning that arrives just seconds before reality does. And across Tel Aviv, everything shifts at once as conversations stop mid-sentence, doors slam open, and people move fast. Not running blindly, but with a kind of practiced urgency, straight toward reinforced rooms and underground shelters. Because hesitation here is measured in risk, not time. Above them, the sky begins to change, not dark but alive. Streaks of light tearing across the horizon as incoming projectiles descend at speed, visible for only moments before the response ignites. Defensive systems launching upward in sharp bursts, interceptors climbing to meet them in midair, collisions flashing like brief artificial stars before breaking apart into fragments that scatter and fall, some burning out, others continuing downward, unpredictable. The noise builds in layers, sirens, distant impacts, the crack of interceptions, until it becomes a constant pressure in the background. And even when one wave passes, no one steps out too early, because here, it never comes just once. And every second inside those shelters is spent listening, waiting, calculating whether the next sound is farther away or getting closer.
Basin, is it different than the ones that we knew that they had?
Yeah, so I'm not going to pick on you on nomenclature here, but basically this is a missile. What makes it a missile is that the back half is a rocket. A rocket is a propulsion system. You point it in a direction, that's where it goes. It's not guided.
What's falling from the sky isn't always a single explosion. It's something far more complicated and far more dangerous, because some of these warheads don't stay whole when they're hit. They break apart, splitting midair into dozens of smaller charges, each one continuing its own path toward the ground, turning a single interception into a scatter of unpredictable threats, spreading across streets, rooftops, open areas, anywhere gravity takes them. And that's why even a successful intercept doesn't mean safety. It just changes the shape of the danger. Then there are the larger systems, the long-range ballistic types, that climb high beyond the atmosphere before coming back down at extreme speed, re-entering in a blaze that makes them look almost unreal, like fragments of a meteor shower cutting through the night, visible for miles before impact or interception, fast enough that reaction windows shrink to seconds, not minutes. And even when defenses engage, even when targets are hit mid-flight, physics doesn't disappear. Debris continues downward, burning, spinning, sometimes detonating late, sometimes not at all, but always carrying risk. And that's the reality beneath the visuals. This isn't just about stopping missiles, it's about managing what happens after they break. Because what survives the sky still has to land somewhere. What stands between the city and what's coming down from above is not a single shield, but layers, each built for a different kind of threat, each reacting at a different altitude, a different speed, a different window of time. From systems like Iron Dome designed to handle closer, shorter-range threats, to David's sling covering the space in between, and up to Thod reaching higher into the sky to intercept incoming targets before they descend, forming a network that doesn't just react, but prioritizes, calculates, and decides in fractions of a second what must be stopped first. But even with that kind of layered defense, even with radar tracking, interception algorithms, and rapid response launches, there is a limit that no system can fully eliminate, because every engagement is a race against time, physics, and probability. And in that race, perfection doesn't exist, saturation can overwhelm, trajectories can shift, timing can fail by just enough to let something through. And that's the part rarely said out loud. The technology is powerful, precise, and constantly evolving, but it was never designed to be flawless, only to reduce damage, to buy time, to turn what could be catastrophic into something survivable, knowing that somewhere in every wave, something might still slip past. And when the noise fades and the sky clears, what remains isn't just damage, it's repetition, a cycle that resets itself day after day, where normal life is measured not in hours, but in the gaps between warnings, where families learn routines built around uncertainty, and where the real weight isn't only what falls from above, but what lingers in the mind long after it's over. Because this isn't only about weapons or range or interception rates, it's about pressure, about forcing a population to live inside a constant state of anticipation, where every alert feels like it could be the one that gets through. And that changes behavior, decisions, even silence itself. And beyond the city, the tension stretches outward again, back to the Strait of Hormuz, where global stakes remain unresolved, where energy, politics, and power intersect, raising a question that doesn't have a simple answer. If control of a single corridor can ripple across the world, then how far does this conflict really reach? And who is truly prepared for what comes next? So the question doesn't disappear, it sharpens. If even the most advanced defenses cannot intercept everything, what happens the moment one gets through, not intercepted, not broken apart, but fully intact? And beyond the sky, beyond the immediate horizon, another question begins to take shape. If the burden of control is left uneven, if coordination fails and responsibility is divided, then who actually decides how far this goes? And who, in the end, is holding the line?